Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Another away game for old Urge Clifford over here. I'm in Madison Square Garden. Not in Madison Square Garden. The fights are at Madison Square Garden. I'm here in Times Square. I go to New York 2 or 3 times a year for work, and I'm always the biggest tourist. I never leave Times Square. I eat at the same places. I just get like random fast food in the same bars. Never do anything interesting. Full tourist mode every time.
You don't see the chicks from Sex and the City or what?
I go on the Sex and the City tour, obviously. Like I said, full tourist mode. And I'm so tourist mode. I'm using the hotel room Holy Bible and Book of Mormon as my mic stand. So
and whatever works, man. It's meant to uplift you.
It does. It's uplifting my mic. It's like the word of God is coming out of my mouth because it's gospel, if you will.
I don't know.
Basically, like the best case scenario, what it does is it like forgives me of my sins for the things that I say before I say it. You know what I mean?
It's like it works that way.
It's like a condom for my words. Like I can fuck this podcast with dirty words and dirty jokes, but I have a layer of protection over it that's ribbed for your pleasure, Soto.
I think that explanation is as shabby as that beard that you're growing.
You mean robust and sexual? It's just the lighting. That's why it doesn't look as good. It's just the lighting that makes it.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Super patchy.
I don't know you were an American Indian, an indigenous tribes person.
All right, question of the day, and we will post the question down in the comment section, pin at the top. Curious what you guys think. What's your go-to beverage after a Raiders loss? The Raiders give up yet another 17-point lead. It's yet another season wasted over the last 2 decades of futility. We know you're drinkers out there, and we know you're depression drinkers out there, just like Soto and I. So what is your go-to drink after a Raiders loss to drown the pain away? You want to go first, Soto?
My brother, for my birthday, he got me a bottle of mezcal. He got me like the salt and which is like the ground up worms and everything. And he got me the whole thing.
Very Raiders.
And man, a couple shots of that you see in the future.
Well, it's good because I feel like mezcals and tequilas just make you angry, and so like you're already angry and pissed. So it's like, all right, let's just fire it up, like crank it up a notch. You know what I mean?
Just throw a little something on the fire.
Yeah, exactly. Just gasoline on the flames. I'm old school. I just go like a whiskey rocks. I'm drinking Horse Soldier. You ever heard of Horse Soldier?
Whore Soldier? That's what I'm hearing.
Horse. Well, that's because you hear what you want to hear. Horse Soldier.
Whores. A whore's soldier.
Horse. Like nay. Like Secretariat. Soldier.
I know a secretary that was also a whore.
Not Secretariat 3, the porn videos that you rented. Horse Soldier.
Started.
So I got this gift when I was the officiant for a wedding, our boy Dane's wedding. And that was He's like, all right, here's some glasses, and I set up and Horse Soldier. It's like, oh, thanks. So I would sip. I saved it for kind of a special occasion. It sat there for months. And so when the season was over last season, I was like, all right, season's over. Let's have some, right? It's like, okay, went to the playoffs. Right this second, I'm disappointed, but we did so much better than we thought. 4-game win streak to close. Like, made it to the playoffs for a second time. Like, okay, it's all 31 teams are disappointing at the end of the season. I feel like of those 31, we were one of the happier fan bases, right?
Yeah.
So I cracked that thing open. I was like, oh, this is delicious. I was like, wow, I'm fucked up. It's 109 proof whiskey.
Yeah, that sounds about Dane.
That's more brutal than Wild Turkey. 100 whiskey's supposed to be the 80 proof that you just enjoy, like you drink for
you just
flavor.
sip on nice and low. Yeah,
like you could take shots of it and you'll be fine, or you sip it, enjoy. This is the one where it's like you almost need to sift it through like a handkerchief before you get it into your mouth, because otherwise you'll end up flammable.
Blow fire with that thing. Look, I know who gave it to you. And Dane, when he was bartending, he was famous for pouring out maybe like half of the neck of your beer and filling it up with 151.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, here's your Corona or whatever, your Bud Coors Light, whatever. You're like, all right, sweet, thanks. Bleh! Yeah, that was him.
And that's if he was being nice. Normally, he would just whip up the old-fashioned roofie colada.
Oh God, you know how many times I'm not gonna talk about the establishment where he worked because I don't want to get sued. But I got dosed so many times. Him and freaking T and Tyler, they got me so many times. It's not cool. It's not funny, but it kind of is funny because it's like he's not giving me anything stupid, like crazy, right?
Yeah,
he'll give me like a fucking Molly or ecstasy or something.
Well, that's the key to, like, that's fun drinking, right? That's what, your buddies are roofing you. That's just all in good fun. It's the depression drinking that you need after a Raiders loss, where it's just something harsh, something that like doesn't taste good, but something you don't mix, and you just put it down, and you just
that just goes right to the neck, just comes right, just hits you flat. You don't have to work at it. You just drink it, and right away you feel it. Yeah,
you're not there for a good time. You're here for a short time, and you want to be passed out and not feel your feelings anymore.
Yeah, I want to stop feeling this quickly.
It's what you would drink when you want to feel feelings at 2 a.m. with like your dog sitting on your back porch, just like looking into the darkness, listening to like sad country music.
Those are rough nights.
So that's the question of the day. What's your go-to drink after a Raiders loss? Pin the question down there in the comment section. Let us know what y'all think. All right. Well, we're bringing it back to the actual big show. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Raiders 20, Jaguars 27. Another 17-point lead blown like a hobo under a bridge by a crackhead.
All right, here we go. We're going to start with the good, like we always do. And we did have some good. Good. Derek Carr's first half was very good. 16 of 21, 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not too shabby.
And yet again, 0 turnovers, not just by Derek Carr, which is a miracle by itself. The entire team, no turnovers. Is like, I mean, let's like, we need to just like sit back and just appreciate that for a little bit. Like how bad we were turnovers last season. We are tied for 3rd in the league for least giveaways. That's amazing. Like, I don't know, like the season's going so bad and the offense is so sporadic, and we're going to get to the defense in a second. But like, so we're not looking for the good things. Like normally, like when things are going well, we jerk each other off by like good stats. Let's appreciate that for a second. Definitely, 3rd best in giveaways.
Yeah, I mean we're last in takeaways, but whatever, no big deal. Yeah. Also part of the good, our good friend, your friend, my friend, our friend Devante Adams. His first half, he had 9 receptions for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. Amazing.
Luckily, that's amazing for an entire game, because that's what it ended up being.
It's pretty much the same thing.
It's the same number.
Now, these next guys, the defense was not great, but these guys actually, put some work in. Blake Martinez, 11 tackles, 8 solo, and Denzel Perryman, 10 tackles, 6 solo. I think it was the first or second play of the game. Devante Adams, I think he broke his forearm or something like that. And I saw it happen. I was like, oh man, that's not good. I saw his helmet. The helmet hit his forearm, and he grabbed it right away, and he went down to the ground. I was like, looks like a broken forearm. And the way he was holding it, I was like, oh, that's no good. So yeah, he did broke his forearm, and he's on the IR, so he'd be out for at least 4 weeks, probably closer to 6, given the nature of the injury. And guess what? That's it for the good.
Couple good tacklers and a good passing game for 30 minutes.
Okay, here we go. Can't have bad without good. Can't have good without bad. So here's the bad. Our 3rd down offense, we were 3 for 12 in this game. It is an ongoing issue. Our third down offense is always under 50%. And we were, 25% this game. Also in the bad, our 3rd down defense. Jacksonville was one of the worst 3rd down converting teams in the league. And just like Houston was like one of the worst as well. and Jacksonville was 9 for 15. That's 60%. 3 out of 5. If you want to get right on third down, you play the Raiders. Dag nabbit. Moving on to the bad. Our rush defense. We gave up 168 rushing yards to Jacksonville.
That was supposed to be our defense's like one strength. Like we don't get sacks, we don't get takeaways. We make every single quarterback look like a prime Tom Brady. But hey, at least we can stop the run.
Nope. Not so much. And our offensive line, I mean, we gave up 2 sacks, 10 hurries, and 3 quarterback hits. It's like on 36 dropbacks, that's a lot. That's a lot. Actually, no, hang on. 38 dropbacks because he got sacked twice. Mm-hmm. So 36 pass attempts and 2 sacks. Yeah, 10 hurries. I mean, that's a lot. We got to give our quarterback more time to throw.
And they were actually pass blocking above average in the first half. Like, I was like, oh, wow. Like, like we were cranking. It was like, oh, good. Carr's got some time, The few times that they did kind of give up a pressure, it was like, it was an obvious one that Carr saw coming a mile away. He'd, move around in the pocket, get the pass off or check down. And like that, all that was second half. Like that bad was second half.
I feel like if it's one guy coming, I think Carr can do a pretty good job of maneuvering out of the way. But if it's like, we're getting 2 and 3 guys coming through at the same time, and no one's going to be able to get
and it's the that. And it's like the complete like turnstile ones. Like it'll be play action and Carr will literally turn around and boom, there's like a tackle in his face, or you know what I mean? Like he's like those are like, if it's like a delayed blitz or like guys, you put on a decent block for 2.5 seconds, Carr generally could wiggle around that. But yeah, when it's multiple guys getting through turnstile stuff.
No, you can't do that. Okay. We saw the good, the bad. Now it's time for the ugly.
Wait, it gets worse?
Well, I'll let you be the judge.
A little bit.
Derek Carr's second half, unfortunately, wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was ugly. 5 for 15 for 36 whole yards and no touchdowns. Not good. Not bad. It was ugly.
A complete breakdown by every single thing that touches the Raiders' passing offense. Carr started getting happy feet, started getting inaccurate. Line stopped blocking well. Davante and Hunter were starting to drop passes. We didn't talk about it in the post-game show. Like, I made a note of it, but because of how the game go, I forgot. Like, there were 2 or 3 play designs by Josh McDaniels in the first half. I was like, dude, that's Josh McDaniels at his best. When it was they faked a dive, and then there was like 2 fly rushes, and that was the wide open Devante Adams touchdown, like the wide open one. I was like, dude, what a brilliant play design. Like you got Devante Adams like running across against his safety, one little juke that safety falls over. All the defense flows the wrong way.
Everything's flowing one way. Like, you get Davante on it was great.
When McDaniel, like that was the McDaniels I thought we were getting. I thought it would be 10 of those a game. Just brilliant game planning, putting a star receiver one-on-one, getting his quarterback in the right position, protecting a shitty pass blocking O-line by making the defense flow one way so they're not like stopping them. Like that's what I thought we'd be getting out of Josh McDaniels each and every, like that's what I thought we were getting. And that was like a little tiny flash of it. And then second half, kaput. None of that. No good play calling.
Well, I did see one good play call. And we got Amir Abdullah on a linebacker. And he was behind him, and the throw was a little bit short and ended up hitting the linebacker in the back. That would have been a touchdown.
Well, that was first half. That was first half.
That was first half as well.
Yeah,
that would have been that would have been a touchdown. That was a great play call.
Yep.
The way Abdullah stopped to block and then went through the line, and he was gone. He blew right past that linebacker. We've talked about Devante Adams. 1 catch in 8 targets for 0 yards, and of course no touchdowns. So 1 for 8 in the second half. Not good, not bad. It was ugly.
Yeah, and it was and again, it was every phase of the passing game. Like bad play calling, Carr getting inaccurate, Davante struggling to get open, and when he was open, and when he was open and Carr had time and Carr delivered accurately, he dropped it. Or he couldn't get his feet in bounds. It's like, It's seriously, that's what it takes. It takes all like 5 facets of the passing game to take a shit for Devante Adams to have that happen because he's just so damn good. Like it literally takes everyone failing him and him failing himself.
I mean, in that first touchdown catch, he like snatched it away from the DB. Like it was going straight to the DB's hands, and he just like run at the very last second. Boom!
Yep.
He snatched it away from him. It was a great catch. But man, I don't know what happened in the second half. Also on the ugly, our red zone defense, god damn it. They were the Jacksonville Jaguars were 3 for 4 scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Our defense gives up a touchdown when the opposing offense has goal to go 100% of the time. If you get the ball within the 10, you're scoring a touchdown against our defense.
15 for 15.
When I heard that, I shit myself a little bit.
And not only that, but it's like, and we haven't played a lot of great offenses. It's not like we've played like the Chiefs twice, the Bills twice, like we're like Jacksonville was able to do that. Houston was able to do that. Denver was able to do that. Like we're gonna get to the defense in more depth in a little bit, but like our defense is putting up atrocious numbers against mostly awful offenses. That's what's even more scary.
Yeah, I mean, offense is down across the league. You can see the points per game is lower than it was, and it's been in a couple of seasons. And for scoring to be down and for us to be this bad in the red zone is very concerning. Speaking of the defense,
please let's talk more. I'm not depressed enough yet.
You're right. Our defense for the third straight game had 0 sacks. We only had 5 hurries. We had 4 quarterback hits, but Max Crosby, his last 3 games, 0 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. We got to start calling it what it is. We hype him up. We say he's this, he's that. He's been gone the last 3 games. And we can talk all we want about, he doesn't have somebody on the other side. Well, guess what? If you're that player that you're supposed to be, you're that burgeoning star and you're the highest paid player on the defense, you got to start making some shit happen. Because this is 3 games in a row with no sacks, and you have 2 tackles for loss these last 3 games. You need to step up, Max.
And that goes to show you like how bad this defense is going when even our best player is playing bad football.
Terrible. This is the worst stretch I've seen. Because usually he gets in there and gets tackled. Dude, 1 tackle for loss. I think it was like on the first drive of the game. He tackled Etienne like for like a 2-yard loss.
And it was a sweet one too. He was standing straight up, and Etienne like ran into him. He just kind of like did like a
grabbed him and threw him,
twist, just like a fuck you tackle. It was, It was a good tackle.
But that was it. That's all he did. He didn't do anything else.
He's like, all right, I'm off. I did my deal.
Later.
I did my deal.
Again, the ugly. We have to end with this. Our coaching staff is, I don't know what the fuck is going on. We're gonna get to it a little bit later. And I understand coaching your scheme to find out who should play and who should be there and who shouldn't, right? Because I think one of the big things that both McDaniels and actually all 3, McDaniels, Ziegler, and Patrick Graham talked about was smart players, right? Mm-hmm. Now I understand if you have players that maybe aren't that smart, and I hate to say it that way, but maybe not football smart, because I think that was one of the knocks that Gunther had as well, because he had a defense where you needed to be smarter and you need to be able to process a lot because he threw a lot at you, right?
He needed Mensa meeting doctorate smart players to do it.
Yes, and
not football players.
I'm not defending Paul Gunther. Yeah. What I'm saying is that he had that same gripe that he needs players to be able to, play whatever he play and scheme that he throws out there at any given moment. So I understand coaching your system, but you have to have some flexibility to know who you have in the room and who you have on the field. Mm-hmm. So my dad, he had a mechanic shop, right? And there was this guy, he was like one of his minority partner's son. His name was Hana. And Hana was, God bless him, he was not a smart man. He was just not. He's a very nice person. We got along very well. We both loved the Dodgers. I liked the Raiders, and he liked the Rams at the time because they were in LA at the time. And he put a car on the jack, right? On the lift.
Here we go.
The car fell off the lift to his side. And we're just sitting there like, Jesus Christ, like what the fuck? And then it wasn't Hana's dad, it was this other guy. It was this Korean guy named Sun who worked at the shop as well. And he goes to my dad and he's like, my dad's name was Jesse. He's, Jesse, why do you ask for more than God gave him? And I'm like, well, I'm like 13 at the time working at my dad's shop. And I'm like, wow, I get it. It makes sense, right? Why do you put him in position to make mistakes when you know he's a fucking idiot, right? Mm-hmm. And our coaching staff needs to have that same mentality. Like, you know what you have by now, and you need to be able to kind of adjust what you're doing. And I understand that you need to run your system and put in your stuff, and that's how you're your best. But you also have to focus on what's your best for your players and what they do best. On the flip side of that, the players' execution, not very good. I saw a lot of mistakes. I saw one time Perryman and Blake Martinez ran into each other. I don't know how you fucking do that as two linebackers standing side by side. You don't see the same shit.
Maybe that's why they got maybe that's how they got so many tackles.
They
just kept tackling each other. They each get one. You get a twofer each time.
That's how it works. You each get a half. Yeah. So I mean, it was just it's both. I think that the coaching staff changed up and we'll talk about this later, but changed up their strategy. Graham really hasn't gotten that sweet spot of how to get the best out of his players while still keeping the integrity of his system. But also, I see the same thing as well in execution, both offensively and defensively.
So that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Goodbye, Jacksonville versus Las Vegas. Hopefully we never talk about you again. In personnel moves, after the trade deadline passed, we would say, okay, I guess this is our team, more or less. Nope. We got rid of people we couldn't find a trading partner for, and not some off and on the scout team guy, not some undrafted free agent that was just hanging on by a thread, but first round safety, Johnathan Abram. He was cut, and then he was picked up by the Packers. Packers claimed former Raiders safety Johnathan Abram off waivers per source. This is Tom Bellicero reporting. So we've known what Johnathan Abram's problems have been. Couldn't cover. He was a great thumper. He, was real good in the box, but he couldn't cover and he kept getting hurt. And so this was him getting out of there. So a couple things. First off is this is not the only sign, and this by itself isn't a major issue, but this is example 942 that we weren't getting out of Patrick Graham what we thought we were getting, and that was a defensive coordinator who had a system, but was flexible enough to be able to take a mixed bag of players and be respectable, right? Now, the Raiders defense has been so historically bad the last 10 years, 20 years, that you're not going to turn it around right away. Patrick Graham by himself was not going to turn this defense around and make it a top 5 defense, nor were we expecting him to. But we were hoping that this is a guy that can take a lot of spare parts, a mixed bag, be creative. The guy went to Harvard, right? Fucking Harvard grad.
Harvard, I believe.
Like, all right. Harvard. And he can make something work. This is a small sign, not the biggest sign, but a small sign that maybe he can't do that if he couldn't find any role for Johnathan Abram, a guy with sizable upside in very specific parts of defense. That's like, you know what? He's so bad at what he's bad at. There's not even a place on this roster for him. On one of the worst defensive rosters in football. It's not like the Raiders were overflowing with defensive backs. It's like, sorry, John, this room's too full of Pro Bowlers. We're going to have to let you go. It's like one of the worst DB rooms in football. And he couldn't even make that DB room.
Yeah, well, what I said after the Jacksonville game was now's the time to take a look at what we have and what we can move forward with. Mm-hmm. I think because our secondary has got so many holes in it, we need to take a look at other players. And honestly, I just think he was taking up space. Mm-hmm. He can't cover. He's, again, one of the worst cover safeties in the league. maybe you can drop them down to be kind of in the box and stuff. But then you see players like Masterson and I'm sorry, I don't remember the other rookie linebacker's name that got some snaps this week, and they're probably better in pass coverage than Johnathan Abram is. Mm-hmm. So it's like, where are you going to put them if you want to look at these young guys because maybe you want to see what they have, you want to put them in game time situations, and you only have so many spots on your team, right? And I'm not going to put this all on Patrick Graham because you can take players from like even if they're mismatched for your scheme, right? And if they're okay, decent players, right? And they'll be able to give you something. But if they were bad players, even on a dummy down scheme, like if Gus Bradley's scheme, if you're a bad player in that scheme, even you're just not going to have any chance. And that's why I said in the beginning of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if they had cut Abram in training camp because he's that bad. And I know I studied Patrick Graham's defensive system. He does use a lot of 3 safety sets, and the way he can make his system work is by disguising things. He disguises things by giving you mirror looks, and you don't know which side's going to do what. So both safeties have to be able to cover. Both safeties have to be able to come in the box and tackle. So if one of your safeties is out there and you know that he can't do certain things, it kind of defeats the purpose of how he wants to disguise his defensive looks. Mm-hmm. And so I get it. I'm disappointed too. I kind of, I wish that he had worked out because he does do what he does much better than he did in the past. He's a much better tackler now, and he is a physical presence out there, but goddamn, is he awful in coverage. And
he got, like every other defensive player on our team, he got worse. Like, because you remember, his rookie year, he played 1 game and got hurt. We had no clue what he was. Second year, he was that great run, thumper, run stopper. Not even bad in coverage because he's never in coverage. He's like, it's so blown out. Like he was never in position to make a mistake. It was just so bad.
No, well, second year he was bad on everything. He was missing tackles and he was bad in coverage.
And then his last year, his third year,
got much better.
He got way better. So he was like, his tackling was much better, and he was in position more often. Still wasn't good, like in the hip pocket to actually break the play, but at least we saw improvement. And that was like, me, like that's one of the biggest things I look for. It's like, okay, what have you done in the past, but what's your trajectory? It's like, wow, are you improving? Are you long term? Like, is this in next season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons? Are you going to be a good contributor for us? He was on that trajectory. That doesn't mean he was going to ever be good in coverage, but he was definitely improving. And then this season, he got worse at everything. Like, he used to be a really good blitzer. Now when you see him blitzing, it's just like one tiny juke and he overcommits.
Yeah, he misses. Yeah.
He misses. Like, he got worse at everything this year, and that's on Abram. But again, that's on staff too. When your entire defensive unit is playing worse individually this year than last season, I think Abrams, I think the best example of that. Like, he's like the perfect sample of what I think is going wrong with this defense.
I see that, and definitely it shows in their production. But again, you have a player who was bad in a dummy down defense, and then you get a defense where you have to be able to think a little bit more on your feet and be able to process more information. It just wasn't a good mix. It wasn't a good mix for him. He wasn't long for this team, and honestly, they did him a favor by cutting him, and I mean, good luck to you. Whatever. Bisaccia probably put a good word with him with Green Bay, and if he can fit a different role with them than he did with us, maybe not be a starter, but be in certain packages and stuff like that. I'm sure, he wants to stay in the league. He has to figure something out, right? But he was never going to be that with us. Not with the type of system that Patrick Graham wants to run. I saw it before the year even started.
So Johnathan Abram completes the 3-year sweep of all 6 of our last first-round draft picks. Remember, we had 3 in 2019, 2 in 2020, 1 in 2021. All 6 of those players will not be with this team. That's not entirely true. Josh Jacobs we may franchise.
Cleveland Farrell may be cut next.
Cleveland might be put next. So in 2021, Alex Leatherwood, first rounder cut. 2022, Henry Ruggs III. We know what happened there. 2020, Damon Arnett. We know what happened there. Farrell, fifth year declined. Josh Jacobs, fifth year declined. Still playing, maybe franchise tag, but fifth year declined. And then 2019, Johnathan Abram cut. So we had 6 first round players in the last 3 seasons. None of them were able to stay with the team. And we knew the Gruden-Mayock drafting was atrocious, right? Like the evidence had been there for a while, but this just kind of completes it. You know what I mean? It just kind of in a nice, clean little package with a pretty bow and a nice little ribbon delivered onto your doorstep. Yep. See, 0 for 6 first rounders.
Yeah, man. You wonder why our defense is so bad. Why we lack so much talent. How you build your defense is, you get young guys in there and you develop them. Mm-hmm. And maybe they might not be the splashy superstars, but they're contributors. And I'm not saying you're going to hit on every single one, but Cleveland Farrell should be like the one outlier. Like, oh crap, like he's with the team still, but he's just not playing that much. Your other guys should be, especially defensive guys. I don't see as many defensive guys as offensive guys wash out as quickly. Mm-hmm. But goddamn, man, this is awful. We turned Amari Cooper and Khalil Mack into that. Mm-hmm. So let that sink in for a second.
Yep. At the time, and I still stand by this. At the time, that Khalil Mack trade I thought made sense for the value we got and the cap space we got, but we just didn't turn it into shit. Like we got some good parts. Like we got good money. We just invested it poorly, right? We invested in Enron instead of in, Bitcoin 7 years ago, and it cost us.
Yeah, look. We're paying the price for all those bad drafts, man. Mm-hmm. We're paying the price for all that, and there's only so many times you can kick the can down the road and put Band-Aids on things until it just comes up where you're just like, I don't have enough money to fill all these holes. And
sounds like me at the strip club.
You always have money to fill the hole at the strip club. It sucks, man. It sucks. And I'm by no means giving anybody a free pass on our coaching staff. I think they've done a poor job so far. Mm-hmm. But goddamn, do we have a lot of deficiencies on this roster. And that's a big part of it.
So moving forward, you remember last season, we had arguably the best locker room in football. A team that overcame as much diversity as any football team in any season in the history of the NFL with, Gruden, Ruggs, everything that happened, right? We've been through it a million times. And we overcame it all for whatever reason and turned it into a season to be proud of. 4-game win streak to close out the regular season, playoff berth, one bad ref's call, one bad play call, one bad pass away from beating the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals, right? So we thought, okay, great. Josh McDaniels is coming over. Historically, his deficiencies has been that he's not like quite the leader of men that some coaches have certain strengths. Some coaches are just like football dumbasses, but they're just leaders of men and like people just love them and follow them. And that's how they're successful. Some coaches aren't, but they're super geniuses with the X's and O's and with the roster and with drafting. And that's how they're successful. Right. So we thought, Josh McDaniels on paper isn't the leader of men, but we have an amazing locker room where maybe he doesn't need it, right? Like this is such a good locker room. It's overcame so much. This should be a good marriage. It hasn't panned out at all, but on paper we're like, this could work. This is the kind of team that Josh McDaniels doesn't have to be a super rah, everyone loves me, super personal guy. He can just be a great football mind, let the locker room carry it, right? That may not be the case. So I can't remember at all this season any of our players specifically pointing to a coach, coaching staff, GM, or anybody specifically. It's always been, we need to do better. We just got to work harder as an entire unit, just kind of generics, right? Devante Adams, and I believe it was the exact, right after the Jaguars game, I think the post-fight presser. I don't think it was a later one. I think it was the post-game presser. He said, I don't understand why we stopped throwing the ball after the first half with how much success we had and started forcing run plays. I'm paraphrasing. But that's the first time I saw a player specifically point to a coach and say, I don't like his decision. I am unhappy with what this coach said, did, whatever, right? So Josh McDaniels responded, and he said, when asked about this, he said, Davante didn't. I know what he meant when he said that, and I don't take any of those things personally. The reality is we have opportunities. We got to come through with them, and I have to do a good job of trying to make sure that we continue to try to present opportunities for our team. He also said, it is what it is, but you end up throwing it really well in the first half and producing a lot of yards and points with very little success in the running game. I've looked at it many times because I called a lot of different games. Is that a sustainable model to keep you playing when you're going to throw it for 450 yards and not run for any? It's a tough thing to think you're going to be able to do it that way. So, not so much what he said, because I think they're both speaking in such generalities. They're both right. Like Davante's like, we were doing something and it was working. Like, why did we stop? And McDaniels is, well, we can't throw the ball 60 times a game. We got to mix in some run. So, like, okay, they're both right. How concerned are you, Soto, that this is an inkling or a seedling or a sign or a glimpse out of Davante that Josh McDaniels is losing this locker room?
I'm very concerned. I am very concerned. You have a player like, look, let's just call it what it is. Derek Carr is one of the leaders of this team. He's not known as a winning player, right? I'm not trying to shit on the guy, but he's not known as a winning player. You got Devante Adams on the other hand. That guy is known as a winning player. He's been on teams that have won. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been in multiple championship games before, multiple all-time All-Pro. I don't really look at Pro Bowls because everyone and their mom could be a fucking Pro Bowler. But All-Pro, there's not a lot. When he starts questioning the coach, people are going to start questioning and following that too. Mm-hmm. Maybe there are things like they're good soldiers. It's a good locker room, right? They'll say those things within themselves like, man, I don't know why we did this, but you know what? We're going to keep pushing forward and just keep cranking, right? Then you got Devante Adams coming in here saying, look, I've won shit. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And that there is bullshit. We need to be doing better than that. And these are the conversations that need to be had. They need to be had. And this is the turning point right now for Josh McDaniels. Because if he could take this input from the team and look at what's happening on the field and take his part. Now, I'm not going to say that it's all his fault, because ultimately we threw the ball 15 times in the second half. It wasn't like we didn't throw the ball. It was less than we did in the first half.
He got 8 targets in the second half.
Yeah, and Davante got 8 targets. So you do have to – he dropped 2 balls, and also, you know, a lot of those were not accurate. We all agree on that. So it wasn't like the game plan wasn't the same as it was in the first half. They still threw to him. They still targeted him quite a bit. Now, you still have to have that connection with the coach and player. You have to be on the same page, even if you don't agree. Mm-hmm. And when you start disagreeing, especially disagreeing publicly, that could be a problem. This is why I feel if Josh McDaniels wants to continue to be the coach of this team, how it's constructed as far as the main players on this team for a long term, he has to relinquish play calling. Very few head coaches out there can do head coach and.
I did not see this coming, Soto.
Head coach and GM. Head coach and offensive coordinator play caller. Head coach and defensive coordinator play caller. Very few coaches can do that. And you see how Belichick is doing without Tom Brady being the defensive coordinator, basically, and the GM. It's hard to do a bunch of different things and be the head coach. If you put Lombardi as your offensive coordinator, right, you're saying, I feel comfortable in an emergency. If I'm sick, if I get hit on the sidelines, if I have an emergency, I can't be there, if I get suspended for whatever reason, this is my offensive coordinator. He can call plays in my absence. Or else you wouldn't have put him there, right? I don't think he should call plays anymore, man. I really don't. I think this is too much for him. I think that he needs to focus on being the head coach. I think he can be very involved in the play in the game planning, and he can be very involved as far as kind of suggestion wise with what plays and the type of things that he wants to do in different drives coming up. But if he wants to be successful being our head coach, he can't call plays anymore.
I completely disagree for this reason. I don't think him relinquishing play calling is going to automatically make him a better head coach. I don't think he's spending so much time with his nose in a book that he's forgetting to be a great leader. I think that's just not in him. I don't think more time is what's going to all of a sudden turn him into Pete Carroll, where guys just like love him and want to go for him. And I use Pete Carroll as an example because there's certain head coaches that are kind of like CEOs, right? Like they're not the defensive genius, the offensive genius. They're just kind of like a leader of men and organized and know how to make it all work together, know how to run a practice. Like those kind of guys, like they guys like just like great men who could be CEOs of a Fortune 500 company, director of a movie shoot, or head football coach, right? Guys are just wired for leadership and leading men. That's not McDaniels. He's just not wired that way. And as you take away the one thing he was brought on to be, an offensive X's and O's guru, then you've just got a super overpriced clipboard holder at that point.
I mean, I think that you're diminishing the game planning. He still can do that. Like I said, he can still work on the game plan, and he can, he can call certain plays here and there to the offensive coordinator during the game. Like, hey, we should run this. And, at certain times, but if he's not focusing on the things that he's not good at, he's really not going to get better at them. His attention is getting pulled away from what he needs to be doing and what he needs to be better at, which is leading this team. And I don't know, man. He's already shown us that he's not the best head coach, and it's harder to be a head coach when you're also doing / something else. And maybe that's me saying that he's not going to be our head coach for very much longer. Maybe he'll get 2 years and that's it, depending on how we do, because he won't relinquish play calling duties. But to say that he needs to get better at something, but let's distract him by doing something else instead of what he needs to be better at, I don't think that's the great play either.
I just don't think time is what's holding him back. Like, and like schematically, again, like on paper, that's what it's supposed to be good at, right? So you're literally taking away the reason he got hired. Like Mark Davis didn't hire him to be a CEO head coach. They hired him like, all right, let's be the head coach, but bring in your offensive genius, right? Like what you did with the Patriots, like what you did with Tom Brady, what you did when you didn't have Tom Brady, what you did with Garoppolo, what you did with Jones, like whoever you got, you were able to like wrangle together something up. So now you've got some good weapons, an established quarterback. This thing should take off, right? And it's not happening. He's not doing it. So it's like, if you can't do the number one reason I hired you, why would I have you do this backup gig that's never been your strength? Like, I mean, that would be, if he did that, I would say like, all right, he's fired in like 3 games. If he's like, I relinquish play calling duties, and he actually did, right? Not just on paper, like just saying he was going to, but like really he's on the headset and calling the plays. But if he really did relinquish play calling, I mean, I think he's gone in 3 days or 3 games. Like that's what he was there to do. It's like, all right, Derek Carr, we're gonna have Jared Stidham play quarterback, and we're gonna have you play tailback. It's like, it's not what he does. Like, it's not why you're here. It's not what you're paid to do.
He's not going to be here much longer then.
And the other part about this too, about just like losing the locker room. Those locker rooms are tight, right? Like players don't say shit unless it's the mafia, right? Like they know they've all been in the media spotlight long enough where they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like if you're in the NFL, if you're a starting NFL player, you were the best kid on your Pop Warner team. You're the best kid in high school. You're the best kid in college. You've said your dumb stuff. You've tweeted your dumb stuff. You've learned your lesson. You've learned to keep your mouth shut, right? Like That's why the guys like the Antonio Browns of the world are like the dumbest motherfuckers ever, who like still talk after they never learned their lesson after 20 years of being in the spotlight. It's like, all right, God, you're dumb, right? For Devante Adams to come out and point the finger explicitly, even though he's an emotional guy, right? We saw him push a cameraman, right? Like Devante's sparking. Allegedly, right? Still pending. But for Davante to like come out, a smart guy, a really smart guy, an emotional guy, but a very smart guy, to point the finger, that's just what's bubbled over. That's just there's way like a glacier, right? Like you see just like 5 feet of ice in the water. There's 100 feet of ice beneath it. That's what every little scrap of complaining coming out of a locker room is. There's no way right that second on a whim, Davante's the only one that's upset with Josh McDaniels. 0% chance.
Oh yeah.
This is something that bubbled over, and we're just finally catching a glimpse. We're seeing the fin of the great white shark.
Mm-hmm.
So with Josh McDaniels, we know what happened with the Denver Broncos, and it's been like players have basically like said why, right? Like this is why he didn't succeed. He lost the locker room. They started off 6-0, and he still only made it 28 games before he got fired in Denver because he just lost the locker room, wasn't a leader of men. Brandon Marshall, who was a wide receiver on that Denver Broncos team when Josh McDaniels was there, was on CBS's crew, and they were talking about like coaches and leadership and players between like what the culture going on, etc. And old Brandon Marshall went off.
Say action. Some of these players are more qualified than some of these head coaches. Facts. Okay. Key attributes for a head coach. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about game day management, operations. We're talking about, do you have the philosophy, X's and O's? All right. But the most critical one is leadership. Because the opposite of it is Josh McDaniels. You have everything, but you don't have leadership. And now you're sitting on a 30 and 20 something record, and you can't lead men. You wonder why you have Derek Carr. You wonder why you have all these other guys, and you can't beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. So for me, some of these.
The opposite of leadership is Josh McDaniels. Like you saw Julian Edelman's eyes like just shoot up. Like you saw the whites of his eyes.
Yeah.
This is a guy who played for Josh McDaniels and said the opposite of leadership is Josh McDaniels. I wonder if Mark Davis wishes he gave Brandon Marshall a call before he hired Josh McDaniels. Can it be? Can he be that? Is there sour grapes potentially out of Marshall, or is he really a guy that's just like been in football his entire life, knows offensive football inside and out, but just doesn't get the leadership role to the point where, like, we all have coworkers and bosses where you're like, oh man, I wish my boss were better at this, but it's like, okay, it's just not what he's about. Or, oh man, I wish, my boss he's good at a lot of things, but he's not good at that. Brandon Marshall is pissed over a decade later, pissed that Josh McDaniels is a bad leader.
Yeah. So the thing that we're running into, and I'm not saying that he's not right, is that was a 32-year-old Josh McDaniels that he's talking about. Mm-hmm. He's not talking about the Josh McDaniels now. Now, I'm not trying to say that Josh McDaniels is a completely different person than he was back then. There are going to be strong parts of his character that are still there.
That was my cautious optimism. Was okay. He's saying the right things. He's had so much time. A smart guy like him should learn his lesson by now.
Yeah, and this is where it's going to come out after you're publicly called out by one of the leaders of your team, who is not just one of the guys that's used to losing with the Raiders, but a winner where he's been before. So it's not like he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're going to get to see it. Now we're going to get to see how Josh McDaniels reacts to what happened. Is he going to internalize this stuff? Is he going to sit there and be like, oh, nope, this is what I got to do. I know this works. It's worked before. Well, guess what, Josh McDaniels? You don't have a Bill Belichick defense to cover your ass when you start taking your foot off the gas. You know what I'm saying?
You don't have a Bill Belichick umbrella of efficiency that you can always lean on, right? Like Bill Belichick can say, trust me, you may not get it, but trust me, trust the process. Look at all my Super Bowl rings, right? He can do that. Josh McDaniels can't. He has to win you over first and then get the success. And then you can lean on the success to win people over, right? It's like a chicken and the egg thing, right? You need to win players over. You need to win, but to win, you need to win players over. And he's starting from scratch, but he's treating it like I'm Belichick. Just trust the process because I have all these Super Bowl wins. It's like you don't.
Yeah, and that's the part that he needs to. I mean, for his sake, he needs to learn quickly. Is look, none of the things that I've done in the past, none of my resume is going to help us now.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get these guys to buy into what I'm saying to do with this team, and the only way they're going to do that is by winning.
Literally, 2-3 shows ago, we did a whole segment on just like the context for how bad this defense is playing.
Mm-hmm.
It only took a couple of games for it to get worse. Soto, Raiders rank in the NFL last in sacks per game, last in takeaways per game, last in passer rating allowed, second to last in points per drive allowed. They give up 15 of 15 in goal to go on defense. We thought the Paul Guenther years was rock bottom for this defense. This, by several metrics, is worse than the Paul Guenther years. We got to stop hiring coaches with the initials PG because Patrick Graham and Paul Guenther have dragged a traditionally bad defense. It's been bad. And making it embarrassingly terrible. This is unacceptable.
Look, man, finally, after this whole entire season of being a shitty defense and giving up leads and not being able to stop people and being terrible on third downs, being terrible in the red zone, finally today, I believe it was, that a defensive player stuck up for Patrick Graham. Duron Harmon said in an interview that every player on the defense still believes in Patrick Graham and that they need to execute better. They need to execute what they're being taught better.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like I talked about earlier, if you're just not executing the scheme and it's this many players on the team not doing it, maybe the coach is asking you to do too much or asking you to do things that you can't do. So like I said, why you ask for more than God gave them, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then you have to maybe scale down what you're looking to do, and not so much to where it becomes easier to game plan against, but you got to find that happy medium somewhere. And I don't think he's doing it at all. I think he's just saying moving straight forward, going full steam ahead with what his scheme and what he wants to do, regardless of the players.
And there's part of me that says, okay, I get it. Let's give these guys a crash course to learn this defense, right? Like part of me understands that. But this coaching staff isn't going to last long enough for that to happen if this defense keeps playing this awful, right? Like, because the offense sputtering, not as good as it should be, but still a better than average offense. Like, it's not what it should be with how much money we're spending, but it's still in, top 15, sometimes top 10 in a lot of categories. The defense is bottom rung in most of the important categories. And what's even scarier is we've played mostly bad offenses. Jaguars, awful offense. Texans, awful offense. Broncos, awful offense. Cardinals, Titans, Saints, not good, below average offenses. And still, this defense is bottom rung. Like, we've only played the Chiefs once. It's not like we're playing, the Bills and like a prime Rams team and these amazing offenses. Like, we're playing mostly bad, sometimes awful offenses, and still our defense is getting storched. Yeah, I said storched. That's torched and storched all put together.
I was trying to follow you on that one. I was like,
starched and torched. That's storched for you. So here's the question. What's step one to righting this ship?
What, the defense or the entire thing?
Let's focus on defense for now because it's at the bottom of the shitter?
Right now, you have to identify players. Like I said, you have to identify the players that you can't move forward with.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've already identified a few. It's not a slow process, man.
Mm-hmm.
When I mean, like I said before, like we're acting like this defense was a great defense, even under a very simple game plan. They weren't. They were still bad. Not this bad, but they were still really bad. I think they were 26th last year.
And again, that's what scares me the most is it's worse than it was last season when on paper it should be better, right? Chandler Jones was brought on. He was supposed to help all of our like rookies that had a really good rookie season last season. On paper, that's the biggest jump for most players from rookie year to second year. That's supposed to be when they make their biggest jump. None of that's happening. Even Max Crosby has been quiet the last few games and playing some of his worst football. Like, that's what's more scary. You're right. It's not a good personnel defense. Hasn't been for 20 years. None of us were planning or expecting them to be a top 10 defense.
Also, the personnel that's there doesn't fit to what Patrick Graham wants to do. And that's the double whammy. It's like not only are these players not great, but they're also in a bad scheme, and some of the players that they've brought in, Rocky Scene's played well. Averett has not played well. Hobbs has been gone. Duron Harmon's played well. But, who else can you look at in that defense who's, in the right type of scheme? Like, there really isn't a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys who were there that were here last year. But, again, they were asked to do different things. They were playing a different defense. And even then, when they were asked to do the things that they were more capable of doing, even then they weren't that good at it.
And that would carry a lot of weight if we were like the 24th worst defense. You'd be like, all right, he's working.
Again, you're asking them to do better at things that they're not good at.
This isn't the worst personnel defensive wise in football. It's not. It's not the worst in football. But it's playing like the worst in football.
There's two ways to look at that. Is it the worst talent wise or is it the worst fit wise?
I still can't buy that Patrick Graham can't adjust. They can't adjust to not be the worst team in football, not the worst defense in football. That's what I refuse to give him that pass.
I get it. I listened to his press conference, and he addressed that directly. And he said, there's an element of having to simplify your defense, but you can't simplify it enough to where it becomes too easy and the offense can exploit you. And there's, like I said, he hasn't found that happy medium yet because it is difficult because there's a lot of different pieces. And then you have pieces that you end up counting on that are not there anymore for a few weeks or a month or haven't been there for, I don't know how long Hobbs been out. But yeah, it's not easy, man, especially when you don't have the right players for your scheme and you're trying to patch shit up, and it's just not good all the way around. It's just not good. The coaching hasn't been good. The player fit hasn't been good. The execution hasn't been good. It just hasn't been good whatsoever.
Well, luckily for the Raiders, they're getting literally the worst offense in football.
Don't say that. Don't disparage. You keep doing that, and I keep telling you to stop doing that because I told you before, there is no weak schedule for us. We are the weak part of people's schedule, okay?
Well, this is my point. Something's got to give. You've got the worst defense in football against the worst offense in football. This is the real test. Like if Indy is able to put up like 28 on us,
bro, you said Davis Mills was trash. He threw for like 3 bills and 2 touchdowns, right?
That's how bad.
And then you said and then you said New Orleans has nobody, and they got fucking Andy fucking Dalton who fucking just lit our tits up. And you're like, oh yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been doing terrible. Oh my god, and they fucking whooped our ass. I'm like, they are
all exactly as bad as I've said, because our defense is as bad as I've said. So now it's finally rock bottom, right? We're finally at literally the Colts have the lowest points per game of any team in the NFL. It's like 17 points per game.
And they have a head coach who was chilling in the freaking studio 5 days ago.
They didn't have a single play caller on their coaching staff, like someone who's
Offensive
actually
play caller, yeah.
offensive player, who's actually called an offensive play on their entire staff.
Look, man, there's a lot of shit going on in Indianapolis right now. You got John Fox and Gus Bradley, who are, long tenured offensive or defensive coordinators and head coaches in this league, who were passed over for this job, and I don't think they're very happy about that. So there's a lot of shit going down on behind those doors, and if we lose to these fucking guys, I don't know, man. I just can't see us losing to these guys. They have too much turmoil right now.
Ready to do some what up windbags?
Sure, why not?
Fuck it, we're here, right?
Yeah, might as well.
Koji, new drinking game idea. Take a shot anytime the word quarterback is brought up unprompted or unrelated to the conversation. I can't wait until the draft and we have a top 10 to 15 pick and Ziegler takes a defensive tackle or guard. I don't think my liver can handle that drinking game. Maybe we'll play that drinking game like the very last game of the season. We'll have like IV bags close by, maybe an ambulance on call.
Whoa. When did I bring up the quarterback this episode? I didn't bring up freaking Carr this episode.
No, because I think you saw the what up windbags and you're like, oh, I wonder if RJ actually.
For a fact, I do not read the what up windbags ahead of time. I
never
do.
You have before.
No, when you point something out, yeah, I will.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, good. You're growing. You're growing as a man and a broadcaster, and I'm proud of you. John Novello, he's already lost the locker room as evidence of the players not playing for him or just can't play using his system. Are the players not playing hard enough? Like, is that part of the equation? Like, they're not playing for him? Is it a lack of effort on their part?
You know what? It's hard to put your finger on, but
it's so tough, dude. It's so tough to find out like what the fuck is like this giant thing that's missing. This intangible fucking thing.
Look, the thing is when you're not confident in your coach, when you're not confident in your leader, when you have doubts, your 100% is never 100%.
Yeah.
Because there's always that little bit of doubt, right? And you think that you're giving everything, right? You think you're pushing as hard as you can. That's like when you do a strength and conditioning workout on your own. I freaking push myself today, man. I'm really tired. Shit. And then the next time you do it, and the coach is actually there, and then you're freaking dying afterwards, you're like, "Fuck, that was a lot harder than it was a couple days ago."
Yeah.
You don't have that extra push, that extra drive that a coach or a teammate or a position coach or something like that can get out of you. And if he's lost that already with these guys, you can get it back, but you have to get it back with honesty, and you have to get it back with action, because you can't go out there and be like, man, I kind of fucked this up. But then be preaching execution. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Was execution a part of it? Sure it was, but that's not for you to say.
Yeah.
That's for them to say. You're to say, oh man, I should have done this better. We should take a look at this better. Because the thing that really upset me during the Patrick Graham interview was, they did a couple things different against us, and we just weren't able to adjust. That's your fucking job, dickhead. Your fucking job is to adjust. Not only is it to adjust to what you're seeing, but to plan ahead to what you think they're going to do, and then plan it accordingly. And I just think that's where they are. Like, oh shit, we fucked that one up. We'll get better. We'll get them next time. It's like that's the mentality. And the same thing I'm hearing from Josh McDaniels too. It's like, they did some things differently defensive against us, and it kind of stopped us from what we wanted to do. Well, okay, great, genius. What the fuck are you gonna do about it? Do the same thing you were doing before? It's
really well said. Really well said. I think what they need, Soto, what Josh McDaniels needs is for like you to be like his advocate. Like, all right, Josh, you just screw with the play calling. You do the X's and O's. You do the game plan. We'll have Soto tell you what to say, the pressers. You'll be like Paul Heyman to his Brock Lesnar. You'll be his
I
advocate.
don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Very
Dude,
well said.
do not say the E word. Do not say the E word. Got me? Don't say it. I'm going to have this freaking taser hooked up to your balls. If I hear you even talk about your ex-wife or anything with ex, you're getting shocked. Do not say that. You put it all on yourself. We need to do a better job of coaching. They were doing this and that, and be specific. I think a lot of times when coaches are specific with things, it kind of lets people know that I am aware of the mistake that I made. This is not just bullshit.
Soto, Paul Heyman, Josh McDaniels, Brock Lesnar.
I look better in a suit than Paul Heyman does. He looks awful.
Yeah, but you can't do the cul-de-sac ponytail like Paul Heyman.
I can if I grew the hair out. Yeah.
Prove it.
Fuck no. I'm trying to get pussy, bro. I'm not trying to get what the fuck.
You don't think Paul Heyman gets pussy?
Nope.
I
guarantee you he does it.
Guarantee you he does.
I ain't trying to get the kind of pussy he gets. Tell you
He's
that
too
right now.
charming and famous.
Fuck
and
that
has the cul-de-sac ponytail.
He hasn't seen his dick in 10 years.
Frankie says, Mark Davis is their worst problem. He is one spoiled trust baby who has never worked a day in his life. Actually, he's an embarrassment to the team and the NFL. When we say it all kind of goes to the top, it all kind of, starts and ends at the top. We generally are saying Josh McDaniels, but the real answer is Mark Davis. I mean, he's the one that said, let's move on from Rich Bisaccia. Let's bring in Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler. The buck kind of stops with him. Did you see? I didn't include it on this show, but I posted it on our YouTube. It was the most expensive tickets in the NFL, most expensive beer prices, most expensive hot dog, most expensive parking. Raiders were number one on all 4 categories: tickets, parking, beer, hot dog. 2 and 6. Most expensive day at the football park in the NFL. That's such a kick in the dick. That's oh my God. Like, I don't mind paying for value, right? I don't mind paying for quality. I don't even mind you lying to me. Like, I've shoved more dollar bills in strippers' G-strings because they told me how awesome I was than I care to admit. But like, I'm in on it. Like, yeah, let's just feel good. But you go and you spend $80 on parking, $300 on tickets, and $12 beers to watch a 2-6 team blow a 17-point lead. Again and again.
That's rough. That
one hurts.
Yeah, man. Mark Davis, look. Mark Davis was forced to work, but he was forced to work as the owner's son. Like, no one was ever really hard on him. Al Davis came up and he swindled his partners fair and square. Okay. he came up.
He mercilessly ripped down the pants and shoved it up the tailpipe of his 2 partners.
Fair and square.
Fair and square. Right? He took the Raiders the way the Raiders should be taken, like bounty off of a ship.
He pillaged them.
He pillaged the Raiders off his partners.
Yeah. So you can never the owners of teams who are successful as like a second generation or lineage of owners, they all did something before they went into the football operations. They were something outside where they're able to be successful and see success outside. I don't know that Mark Davis has had to do that. I think the majority of his work has been within the Raiders organization. And it didn't matter whether he failed or succeeded because his dad was the owner. And now he's seeing that, you can't rely on one person like he did. I think that's why he got Gruden in. He's like, all right, you fucking take care of it. Here, you take it.
Yeah.
And it's
the good thing is he's not a major tinkerer of an owner, right? It's like Jerry Jones, who's like in the draft room picking players.
Look,
right?
man,
like,
Jerry Jones does a good job of picking fucking players. I'm not gonna front on that.
But my point is, it's rare for an owner to tinker and have it be successful, right? It's very, very rare. And Mark Davis isn't that guy, but he only has to make a couple big decisions, and so far they haven't been great, right? Making John Gruden the GM, bad choice. So far, Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, bad choice.
Yeah, not great.
All right, this went long, so we'll do our breakdown of Colts Raiders later in the week, which are again, it's always better because then we find out, injury reports and any news breaking, especially the Colts, where that front office
Who knows what the fuck's going on over there?
/ coaching room changes every 45 minutes. So we'll get something up to date about that. Maybe a live show, maybe a live YouTube show on Saturday if we can make our schedules jive. But until then, knock on wood if you're with me. Congratulations for making it all the way to the end of our video. If you want Darren Waller to catch 20 touchdown passes next season and for Max Crosby to have 30 sacks, go ahead and subscribe and click the next video.